Mario and Luigi know how to get weird. It's like the entire selling point of their RPG series and what set it apart from all other Mario spin-offs. As has been widely covered, Paper Mario has been toned down in recent years, to the point it even infected Mario and Luigi with Paper Jam. And as such, that is the only game in the series that exclusively features familiar Mushroom Kingdom enemies. All other titles are packed with some of the strangest little dudes you've ever seen. And today, I want to take you past the creme de la creme of the weirdest enemies of the Mario and Luigi series. We're gonna start in the Beanbean Kingdom, the setting of Superstar Saga. While the Beanish of course aren't enemies, there are a couple of related species, I guess is the word, that do oppose Mario and Luigi. Like the Clump, a caveman version of the regular residents. They're armed with clubs, as you might expect, but there is actually one element of their design which suggests they may be a tad more advanced than we think. When you hit them with any of the fire-based attacks, their hair burns away, revealing it to be a toupee. Maybe they should consider wearing a hat or a beanie next time. And I don't mean the enemy beanie, which is essentially the equivalent of the Goomba in the Beanbean Kingdom. They're not the most noteworthy enemies, if I'm being honest, although their wicked smile is a pretty big departure from the Goomba's neutral expression. And what is interesting is that they actually return in Dream Team, which is actually pretty rare. Mario and Luigi original enemies usually don't make a reappearance too often. Another that did though is the Swarm, which debuted in Superstar Saga but was brought back for Bowser's Inside Story. Sort of. They're brought back in Fawful style and possess chain chomps, which is completely different from what we saw in Superstar Saga. Here they just pop out of the ground, similar to Monty Moles. They're a little unconventional, sure, but we came for the weirdest of the weird, so how about we next look at the Eeker. This is a beaker with a grass skirt holding two torches. Who came up with this? I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great, but why? There might be a Japanese play of words going on here that I don't get, I'm not entirely sure. For the next set of weirdos, we head to the sea floor, where we find the Melibuds and Starkiss. The first are these little fish, octopus things that are constantly asleep, to the point they come pre-packaged with a sleeping mask, pillow, and classic anime sleep nose bubble. Missed opportunity to not bring them back in Dream Team, I'd say. The Starkiss is more or less literally what it says on the tin. It's a starfish that attacks by blowing kisses. You might remember them from Spangle, the starfish guitar player that appears in Superstar Saga and is one of the few characters in the entire series to be of a Mario and Luigi original species. We continue with the Coco Nutter, a strange armed and sentient coconut complete with vine-like legs. They appear to be related to the Coco Knight from Dream Team, which are definitely easier on the eye, but basically the exact same concept. But arguably the coolest enemy of Superstar Saga is the Fighter Fly. This is one of the oldest enemies in the entire Mario series, predating even Goombas and Koopas, as it hails from Mario Bros, before they were Super. While they did have another appearance later in Super Mario Land, Superstar Saga is to this day still their most recent feature in a Mario game, meaning that this neat little reference has basically only gotten cooler as time went on. Moving on to Partners in Time, we find another enemy who enjoys a nap, complete with a sleep bubble to match. I'm talking about the Snooze Orb, which only actually looks like an orb when rolled up in a ball. They have a bit of a strange design if you ask me, I'm not entirely sure what they're meant to resemble. That's not the first time I'm saying that in this video and it won't be the last, but hey, that's the Mario and Luigi charm. And if you have any ideas what some of the strange enemies are based on, please share it in the comments. Let's continue with one I can give some interesting info about, the Hand Fake. This is a hand created by dark goo that holds up different signs and alters its attacks correspondingly. What is cool though is that the Bowser sign is a redraw of his Super Mario World artwork, changed to reflect his current design, mostly in regards to the coloring. We're gonna skip past all the many Shroop variants, they're not exactly niche or really all that weird after all, so instead we'll look at the Bully next. These may have the exact same name as the way more well-known enemies from Super Mario 64, but their design is even more obviously bold. While the others have basically just the horns and that's it, these bullies are straight up a bull's head and 2 feet, nothing more. But they're the perfect segue to a segment containing variants of old and famous enemies that you can't find anywhere else but in the Mario and Luigi series. like the Koopaleon, Koopas with a chameleon twist instead of a turtle one. Just like the animals they're based on, they can turn invisible and have long tongues. This is surprisingly enough one of the few Koopa variants found in the 5 games. A fact that's even more surprising when you consider their fellow Mario staple Goomba has received like 10 new subspecies. We're gonna zoom in on the ones that stand out the most, like the Goom Diver from Superstar Saga, which is a Goomba in a diving helmet. And novel as this concept is, it has actually been done before. Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins featured the Aqua Goomba, which was really the exact same thing, just with a different name. From the same game, we also have the Gritty Goomba, which is much grittier than the normal version, as you can tell from the sunglasses and it being wrapped in toilet paper like a mummy. Is this supposed to be like a biker that got into an accident? I'm not sure. Bowser's Inside Story introduced us to the Choomba, a huge Goomba that is also part chimney. They look pretty cool, to be honest. The pitch black color scheme with the flaming eyes is a great look. This game also introduced us to the Chaboomba, a chubby Goomba that always brings a large lollipop with it. You know, you'd think that with them being large eaters they would have already eaten their lollipops, but I guess these guys have more restraint than we think. By far my favorite Goomba variant is the Tanoomba though. These are Goomba Tanukis, complete with a Super Leaf reference on their head. I didn't think Goombas could ever be considered cute, but these guys proved me wrong. While Shy Guy haven't really had any new variants in the Mario Luigi games, their close relatives the Sniffids have. First we have the Fleefid from Bowser's Inside Story, which is a sunflower with a Snifid mask. They attack by firing off Sneeds, which are seed-like enemies with a similar mouth to a Snifid. Another Snifid with a long-range weapon is the Gunner Guy, which takes a little more drastic measures. In the original Bowser's Inside Story, these even rocked camo gear for the full army look, but this was toned down in the remake for 3DS to the point that it now just looks like a Snifid with a megaphone or telescope. By far the best Snifid variant is the Sniffaro though, which begins the battle inside a Snifid-inspired sarcophagus, only for it then to open and reveal the Sniffaro inside, complete with golden ornaments. Really cool design. It goes pretty well with Anubu, which may sound like it's related to Boos, but it's actually not. It's just a brand new enemy with a design based on Anubis, one of the most famous Egyptian gods. Another enemy that technically doesn't fit here, but I'm gonna chuck it in anyway, is a Choco Rock, which appears to be based on the Octo Rock from the Legend of Zelda series. Not only are the names similar, they also look alike and do the exact same thing. And since Zelda and Mario have more often had cultural exchanges, this isn't even all that out of place. Now, I know I said we would skip the Shroob army, but we're making a small exception for the Lakitufo, which is apparently allied with them, considering the fact the spinies they spawn are of the Shroob variety. That said, I just really like the design of this enemy. It's a great twist on the usual Lakitu, even if the way they're constantly spinning around does make it seem like they're not exactly in control of their own craft. In the Hammer Bro department, we have the musical duo of the Limbo Bro, which attacks by doing the limbo under their own torch, and the Yo Bro, which is based on hip-hop culture. Although, I don't remember Drake or Kendrick Lamar ever performing with a yo-yo in each hand, but maybe that's just me. Next up is a quite misleading variant, the Sand Cheep. This fish-like enemy swims through sand, so surely you would assume it's a variant of the Cheep Cheep then, right? You fool. You absolute buffoon. This is obviously a variant of the Blurb, fish enemies that appeared in Super Mario World and then had a few minor roles later down the line, sometimes literally being called Cheep Cheeps because the translation teams of the Mario games haven't always paid as much attention as you'd hope. Anyway, they're often accompanied by the Shark Bone, a skeletal version of the sushi enemy, although they don't resemble each other much beyond both being sharks. Onto the Piranha Plant, of which there are so many variants, I don't want to waste your time by covering them all, especially since most are frankly quite basic. So instead, I'll just highlight my favorite, one that's actually only one letter removed from the real thing, the Piranha Planet. This is like a ball of pipes with piranha plants wearing astronaut gear popping out on occasion. It's such a bizarre concept, but I love it so much. And while that absolutely isn't every enemy variant yet, I mean, we haven't even covered the La Bomb yet, I don't think the rest are all too thrilling, so I want to use a pair of pokies to transition into the next game on the list, Bowser's Inside Story. because despite not being found in Bowser's body, they definitely fit the theme of the game, since both the Toothy and the Skello key are based on bones. T for the first one, just standard bones for the second. Why the Skello key is not called Dry Pokey or something, I'll never know. But yeah, like I said, Bowser's inside story is next, so let's start with a whole slew of enemies based on bodily functions. The Naps looks like a neuron and has a name derived from a synapse, the thing that allows neurons to communicate. Bifiduses are white blood cells ready to go to war with anything invading the body, including Mario and Luigi in this case. The Calorite and Cholesteron are not so subtly based on calories and cholesterol, while the Pep appears to be based on cells in general. There's also the Stonk, which is based on gas, and the Tenderling, which I guess we can assume was Bowser's last meal come to life. And we even have 3 more enemy variants next, with the Piranha Plorb, a piranha plant based on a vein, and the Goombule and Spike Blob, which are Goomba and spiny species that resemble more generic cells. Fun fact, the Japanese name of the Goombule is Saibo, which is the same name that was later used for a Yoshi's Crafted World enemy that resembles a robot. This one is actually also called Saibo in English, as in the first part of Cyborg. Anyway, Bowser's inside story has enemies from outside Bowser's body to cover as well, like the duo of Pendrill and Drillbit Crab, a penguin and crab with a drill-based design. No clue why they decided to pair up a penguin and a crab, but the ways of Alpha Dream are an enigma sometimes. May they rest in peace. And speaking of rest, Naplocks can often be found napping, as their name implies, in the overworld, but in battle, they can wake up and attack by stacking blocks, which then fall on Bowser and he has to clean them up, it's a whole thing. Next we have an enemy based on the Mario Bros, the Nose, which I actually thought was pronounced Noose at first, until I said it out loud and realized that was probably not the intention. Anyway, these are based on the Bros' noses, except now chickenified. Their wings represent the brother of the corresponding color's mustaches, which is a neat touch. And we go from one punny enemy to another with the Trasher. Like trash and treasure. Get it? Design-wise, it's literally just a chest with eyes though, so maybe the trash is just the first thing that popped into the localizer's mind when he saw it. Who knows? Then we have the Saga, which is one of the few enemies in this video that actually speaks. Although, after reading the quote Mario Wiki picked for them, I'm not so sure giving them the gift of speech was the best idea. Don't ever have an enemy saying they want to chug Luigi again, please. What is neat though is that one of the Sagas we come across is called Kuribo, which is Goomba's Japanese name and a reference to the Goomba shoe, which they strongly resemble. And finally for this game, we have the Treevil, which is not super noteworthy if we're being honest, but does allow me to future-proof this video a little by saying Brothership introduced a metallic tree known as a Crude, which strongly resembles the Treevil. And then we get the Dream Team, which probably introduced the most brand new enemies so far, making the complete lack of them in Paper Jam all the more baffling. We're gonna start with the Chisel, which takes after Dwayne and is one absolutely ripped rock. They even attack using dumbbells, that's good stuff. And not to be confused with the Grumbell, a literal dumbbell with eyes that may have caused that localizer from before to resign. From another matching pair, although that isn't the case in-game, but still, we have the Flibby, which is a bee that looks kinda depressed, and the Bee Hoss, a bizarre tree with a beehive as a face. The latter actually debuted in Bowser's Inside Story, where it arguably looks even weirder, without a spiky ring and evil eyes. We head to the desert for the next 3 faces, although one is hard to make out, being the Flounderflosh. This is a combination between flounder, a fish known to hide using camouflage, and camouflage, a method used by flounders to hide. I'm not entirely sure what a sand dune is supposed to be, but based on the name, I'm guessing the idea has a sentient dune. In practice, it just looks more like a blob or a snail, if you ask me. And then there's also the Kak-Kak, a sleepy cactus. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about it. We have some sky-based enemies to cover as well, like the Pelicrum, a purple bird that makes me question whether the developers have ever seen a pelican before. The Propellion and Storch are significantly smaller and respectively a mix between a propeller and a dragonfly and a torch and a generic bird thing. The Pterodactyl doesn't exactly hide its inspiration, as it's literally just a pterosaur, with the P.O. in its name probably merely a reference to the island it's found on, since I don't really see it anywhere in its design. When we look at Skip Drill, we find a drill. with ice, which suggests to me they rehired that localizer and he is suggesting that I skip this one. Which means we land at ice sad, and that is not a confession about my emotions, but instead a hump of ice with a sad face. There's also a hump of magma with an angry face called Magmad, or Magma D, who knows. Befitting for the trash jokes I've been making, next is Crubbish, a pink trash can with yellow eyes, meaning it might be a reference to Junker from the previous game, which had a similar concept and color scheme. And then we have Thick Squawk, a stopwatch with okay, I give up. And since this video predates Brothership, this has been the final enemy. That said, I do plan on making a video as soon as I finish Brothership, where I cover every enemy in that game, so if you're watching before the game is out, make sure to check back, and if you're watching this afterwards, you will find the perfect video to watch next. Anyway, if I missed any of your favorite enemies from the series, please share them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel to stay updated on all my future Mario content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.